going off the rails. Frankly, given where we are, no deal is the best deal. It's the only acceptable deal. You see, even without the backstop, this is the worst deal in history. If, Mr. Johnson, you insist on the withdrawal agreement, we will fight you in every single seat up and down the length and breadth of...
The second job scandal, Britain's highest-earning MPs exposed. Before we dive into this rather explosive revelation about Westminster's most profitable side hustles, do hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. Because British Corners is where you will find the political stories that actually matter, delivered without the usual Westminster waffle. Right? Let's get into it. Picture this. You're an elected member of Parliament. You've been entrusted by your constituents to represent their interests in the House of Commons. You're paid a rather comfortable £91,000 a year from the public purse. And yet, somehow, that's simply not enough. So you decide to pick up a few extra gigs on the side. Perhaps a speaking engagement here, a consultancy role there, maybe a nice little media contract. Nothing too distracting from your actual job of, running the country. Well, the latest register of members' financial interests has just dropped, and the numbers are frankly staggering. We're not talking about MPs picking up a few £1,000 for the odd speech. We're talking about earnings that dwarf their parliamentary salaries. And sitting right at the top of this rather impressive money-making pyramid is none other than Nigel Farage. Now, Mr. Farage isn't exactly known for doing things by halves, is he? The man who spent decades campaigning to get us out of the European Union, who founded multiple political parties, who's never met a controversy he didn't fancy diving headfirst into, has apparently decided that being a backbench MP simply doesn't keep him busy enough. According to the latest register, Farage has racked up 12 separate income streams outside of his parliamentary duties. 12. Let that sink in for a moment. Most people struggle to manage one job properly, but Nigel's juggling a dozen. It's almost impressive, if it weren't so deeply problematic. Let's break down where all this money is coming from, shall we? His most lucrative role is as a presenter at GB News, pulling in a rather handsome £511,000. That's nearly 6 times his parliamentary salary just for turning up to a television studio and offering his opinions, which, let's be honest, he was going to do anyway. Then there's his work as a brand ambassador for Direct Bullion, which has netted him £281,000. Because nothing says man of the people quite like flogging gold investments, does it? And if that weren't enough, he's also been making videos for Cameo, that delightful platform where celebrities record personalized messages for fans, which has brought in £171,000. Imagine paying to have Nigel Farage wish your mate Dave a happy birthday. The mind boggles. But here's where it gets rather more interesting. And by interesting, I mean potentially troublesome. MPs are supposed to declare their additional income within 28 days of receiving it. It's not a suggestion. It's not a guideline you can ignore if you're feeling a bit busy. It's a requirement. The latest register marks the first time since spring that Mr. Farage has declared his additional income. During that period, he picked up an additional £189,000 from his extra work. That includes nearly £26,000 in speaking engagements for Imperial Independent Media and £168,000 from his presenting role at GB News. Now, those 3 payments from Imperial Independent Media came through on May 8th, May 19th, and June 10th. They weren't registered until October 3rd. That's not 28 days, is it? That's nearly 5 months in some cases. One might wonder what was so terribly distracting that these declarations simply slipped his mind. Perhaps he was too busy filming those Cameo videos. Now, before anyone accuses British Connors of having a particular fixation on Mr. Farage, let's be abundantly clear. He is not alone in this rather lucrative game of parliamentary side hustles. In fact, when you look at the full register, what emerges is a picture of Westminster that might make your average constituent feel rather queasy. Rishi Sunak, the man who until recently was running the entire country from number 10, is the next highest earner according to the register. Sir Keir Starmer's predecessor has declared over £587,000 of additional income since the election. Now, to be fair to Mr. Sunak, he is no longer Prime Minister, so presumably he has a bit more time on his hands. But still, more than £500,000 in additional earnings while serving as an MP makes you wonder when he finds the time to actually serve his constituents in Richmond. Then we have Sir Geoffrey Cox, bringing in over £559,000 of additional income. George Freeman has earned £208,000. Sir Jeremy Hunt, the former Chancellor who spent years telling us all we needed to tighten our belts, has picked up nearly £186,000 in extra earnings. And Nick Timothy, Theresa May's former Chief of Staff turned MP, has pulled in over £181,000. These aren't small sums. These are life-changing amounts of money for ordinary people, and these politicians are earning them on top of their already substantial parliamentary salaries. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Is it illegal for MPs to have second jobs? No, it isn't. Is it against parliamentary rules? Not necessarily, provided they declare the income properly and ensure it doesn't create conflict of interest. But legal and ethical are not always the same thing, are they? The question isn't whether MPs can have additional income. The question is whether they should. When you're earning more than £500,000 from outside work, how much attention are you really paying to your actual job as an elected representative? When Nigel Farage is balancing 12 different income streams, how much time is he spending in his constituency dealing with the concerns of ordinary voters? When you're jetting off to give speeches for tens of thousands of pounds, are you really able to scrutinize legislation properly? Are you attending committee meetings? Are you holding the government to account? There's also the rather thorny issue of influence and access. If you're earning £281,000 as a brand ambassador for a financial company, might that influence your views on financial regulation? If you're pulling in over £500,000 from various corporate interests, are you more likely to see things from a perspective rather than from the perspective of your constituents who are struggling to pay their heating bills? It's not about suggesting that any particular MP is corrupt or has been improperly influenced. It's about the appearance of conflict of interest, the erosion of public trust, and the simple question of priorities. The British public have become increasingly cynical about politicians over the years, and honestly, who can blame them? When scandal after scandal emerges, when rules appear to be treated as mild suggestions rather than requirements, when the people who make the laws seem to live by a different set of standards, it's hardly surprising that trust in our democratic institutions is cratered. This latest revelation about MPs' additional earnings only reinforces that cynicism. It feeds into the narrative that politicians are in it for themselves, that they are more interested in padding their bank accounts and serving their constituents, that Westminster is a closed shop where the rules simply don't apply in the same way they do for everyone else. And let's talk about that declaration requirement again, because it really does matter. The 28-day rule exists for a very good reason. It ensures transparency. It allows the public, journalists, and rival politicians to see who is paying MPs and potentially influencing them. When declarations are delayed by months, that transparency is compromised. It raises questions about what else might not be being declared properly. It suggests a casual attitude toward rules that are meant to ensure probity in public life. The Express has approached Mr. Farage and the House of Commons Standard Committee for comment, but as of now, there's been no response that adequately explains these delays or addresses the broader questions about MPs' outside earnings. Here's what really gets under my skin about all of this. We're living through extraordinarily difficult times. Ordinary British families are making impossible choices between heating and eating. The NHS is on its knees. Our schools are crumbling. Local councils are going bankrupt. And yet, the people who are supposed to be addressing these problems, who are supposed to be fighting tooth and nail for their constituents, are busy racking up hundreds of thousands of pounds in outside earnings. It's not a good look, is it? It speaks to a fundamental disconnect between Westminster and the real world. It suggests that for some MPs, being in Parliament is less about public service and more about public profile that can be monetized. Now, some will argue that MPs should be allowed to maintain connections to the real world, that having outside interest prevents them from becoming Westminster bubble dwellers who've lost touch with how normal businesses and organizations operate. There's a kernel of truth to that argument, but there's a vast difference between maintaining professional connections and running what amounts to a parallel career that dwarfs your parliamentary work in terms of financial reward. There's a difference between the occasional consultancy that keeps you grounded in your previous profession and having 12 separate income streams that collectively earn you well over £1 million. The solution to all this seems rather straightforward, doesn't it? Tighten the rules. Limit the amount of outside work MPs can undertake. Enforce the declaration requirements properly with meaningful penalties for those who fail to comply. Better yet, consider whether MPs should be allowed to have certain types of outside work at all, particularly media roles that might create conflicts with their parliamentary duties or corporate positions that could influence their policy positions. Other countries manage to impose stricter rules on their elected representatives without the sky falling in. Britain could do the same. But here's the thing. Any such reform would require MPs to vote to limit their own earning potential. Turkey's voting for Christmas, as the saying goes. The current system benefits those who are already in Parliament, particularly those with a profile and connections to command substantial fees for their outside work. Why would they voluntarily give that up? It would take genuine political courage, a commitment to public service over personal enrichment, and a willingness to put the integrity of our democratic institutions above individual financial gain. Based on what we're seeing in this latest register of interests, one has to wonder whether such qualities are in particularly abundant supply in the current House of Commons. What perhaps most galling about all of this is the sheer brazenness of it. These figures are public. MPs know their outside earnings will be scrutinized. They know the optics are dreadful. They know it feeds public cynicism about politicians. And yet, they carry on regardless. The money is simply too good to turn down. The opportunities are too tempting. And apparently, the potential damage to their reputations and to public trust in Parliament is a price worth paying. It tells you everything you need to know about the current state of British politics. The rules exist, but they're enforced weakly if at all. The culture of entitlement persists. And the gap between the governed and those who govern them continues to widen. So where does this leave us? With a parliament that includes members earning vast sums from outside work while supposedly serving the public interest. With declaration rules that are routinely flouted without meaningful consequences. With a political class that seems increasingly disconnected from the realities facing ordinary British people. And with a public that is, quite rightly, angry and frustrated at what they are seeing. This isn't about begrudging MPs the opportunity to earn money. It's about ensuring that when someone accepts the privilege and responsibility of being elected to Parliament, their primary focus is on serving their constituents, not enriching themselves. It's about maintaining basic standards of transparency and accountability. And it's about recognizing that public service means something, or at least it should. The Register of Members' Financial Interests makes for sobering reading. It reveals a system that is failing to uphold the principles that should underpin our democracy. Whether anything will change remains to be seen. But one thing is certain. The British public is watching, and they are taking notes. That's all for today's deep dive into the rather murky world of MPs' outside earnings. If you found this analysis valuable, make sure you're subscribed to British Connors, because we'll continue tracking these stories and holding our politicians to account. There's plenty more to uncover, and you won't want to miss it. Until next time, stay informed, stay critical, and keep demanding better from those who represent you.